18 years. The last match of TNT was Sting beating Ric Flair. And now the Stinger is here on AEW. Mark it down. Wednesday night, December the 2nd, 2020. This crazy year has just gone insane.
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, joined by my boy, Big Match AJ. We are back for another exciting edition of the podcast. AJ, it's Sting. It's Sting. I mean, how much more exciting does it get than that, bro?
Tony Schiavone said it all. It's Sting.
And we'll
really
obviously
loud.
get to that point when we talk about the whole episode.
Goddamn, dude.
Wow.
Fucking Sting's here. This is awesome. And his shirt sold out in like 24 hours.
I'm not.
Or not sold out. Like
it
was the most. It was the most sold within 24 hours.
Yeah, which is not surprising. I mean, so many people were excited about this. I was super excited about this. We know people who are just general NXT fans or just wrestling fans in general. I wasn't even expecting this necessarily, man. This was such an exciting moment for AEW, such an exciting moment for wrestling. We'll talk more about what I think Sting is going to do, but just wow. I mean, I feel like it's impossible to start this episode saying anything but holy shit, Sting is here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, maybe if we had the ratings and if we broke 1 million, but we don't, and regrettably, we won't be able to talk about that.
Yeah, that's something that I thought was interesting. There was no ratings news at all. Do you know why that is? I'm not totally familiar with why that is.
Someone on a board said it was because of Thanksgiving still. I don't know why that would be the case, but that's all I have to go off of.
Yeah, maybe some things are just running behind schedule because that would make some type of sense, I suppose. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, no ratings news, no real news there. Obviously, we have to talk about there's a clear Impact AEW relationship going on. If you tuned into last night's Dynamite, you would have an idea about that, which again, we'll probably get into more at the end of the show. But in terms of big news with no ratings, the news is Sting and Impact. And I think they're both very exciting things. Like, Tony Khan had mentioned earlier in the month, or earlier in November, I should say, that things were going to shift within the scope of wrestling. And he was hinting towards this, obviously, because this was the shift, I feel like. So,
yeah. Presumably they're going to do a huge number, and Sting is here, and Impact Wrestling is now in relationship officially, well, it looks like officially, with AEW. And so everything is looking pretty crazy. I don't know. I want to get into Impact, but I also want to save it for later, so it's kind of tough. But
yeah. Well, let's just talk about the show. Let's talk
happen.
about the show. Well, that way we can get into all the exciting stuff we need to talk about. Dynamite opens up with the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. I thought that this was an interesting, a solid way to open up, of course, with a Battle Royal match. An interesting finish, though. We have MJF and Orange Cassidy as the final two. They will then face off next week. And in the middle of it, we obviously have Sammy G coming to a head with MJF. And just so many different crazy aspects to this match I think we have to talk about, too.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in it, a lot of storyline development in it. I think Matt Hardy threw over Isaiah. Was it Mark Quinn? Who was it?
I think it was Isaiah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, he threw over Isaiah for all intents and purposes, and then Mark Quinn, I think, kept working with him, which was weird to me. But and then I think he got Mark Quinn eliminated. He didn't eliminate him though. Some crazy stuff happening with MJF and Sammy Guevara. Some stuff happening with Scorpio Sky and Shawn Spears, where Shawn Spears hit him with the loaded glove to cause him to get eliminated.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. There was just so much storyline purposes going on in this. It was a lot. It was cool.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the Dark Order and Hangman thing because I think the Dark Order is about to become very prominent in AEW. And I don't know if I could be totally wrong because I'm not saying they're going to be huge baby faces. I'm just going to say if there is going to be some kind of invasion angle in AEW, the Elite is like kind of fractured and the Inner Circle is doing their own thing, and the only big stable you have is the Dark Order.
That's a really good point, man. I mean, I think we will in general get like an AEW full blown just like stable if they do end up doing an invasion type angle. But the biggest stable within the company to help them would be the Dark Order. I think the interesting story to tell there is them to be hesitant at first, obviously, and then eventually that's where you get the big babyface pop where Brody does decide to end up helping, or just the rest of the Dark Order helps. But yeah, the match itself was very interesting. I thought that it was a solid match. And it ended a little bit funny. I don't know. I thought the it was just a little clunky, but it was it's an interesting finish. Going to MJF again, taking on Orange Cassidy. It makes a lot of sense though. Like if anyone makes sense with the ring, it is MJF. I just didn't expect them to go right back to him.
What didn't you like about the finish? I thought this might have been the best battle royal they've done.
It was the best battle royal that they've done. It was more so the interaction between MJF and Wardlow just felt weird, I guess. When they had run into each other and stuff, it wasn't horrible, but it just felt weird. And Wardlow going out of the ring to grab Orange Cassidy, bring him back in, and I had sort of almost forgotten about the final rule because I had tuned in like 2 minutes late into the show, so I had forgotten that they face off, the final two face off. So when it's just Wardlow and MJF, I'm kind of like, well, why aren't they fighting each other? And then it all came together and made sense. But and it's definitely not a situation of the Battle Royal being bad. It was just, I liked it, honestly. The whole thing was interesting. It's just, I'm more surprised than anything that MJF is going back to the Dynamite ring. Or the Diamond ring, I should say.
Because presumably MJF goes over Orange Cassidy, right? Because what's Orange Cassidy going to do with the Diamond ring? But if he, I mean, I don't know, maybe Orange likes diamonds. But anyways,
I would assume that MJF comes out with it as well because he makes the most sense with it, and that's why I'm glad they went back to it, because rather than giving it to anyone, like say they wanted to give it to a fresh heel, like they wanted to lift up Pillman Jr. He's a random example, but they want to elevate him for some random reason, give him the Dynamite thing. It just feels like a rehash of what MJF has already done. If MJF just has it again, it doesn't feel like a rehash. It's just a continuation. So
that's fair.
And it makes sense that he would want it back because it has benefited him so much. So yeah, I like it. It was a solid matchup, the best battle royal they've done for sure, like you said. So I'm with you there. We then go to Chris Jericho versus Kazarian, and this was interesting. We have, at one point, MJF faking that he's going to throw in the towel, Sammy Guevara grabbing it, and Jericho seeing Sammy with the towel, so assuming that it's Sammy, MJF just creating dissension within the group, and Jericho still picking up the victory with a solid, his finish, I forget, the Judas effect, when he hit Kazarian with it. It's just so beautiful the way he hits that move sometimes, because I'm not expecting it. It's a weird, like, strike version of the RKO, where it's out of nowhere and just takes someone out. So loved that. And then afterwards, we of course have Sammy and MJF start fighting, and Jericho tells them to stop, starts yelling at them, lets them know that next week they're either going to come together as a unit or the whole group is disbanding. So I thought this was an interesting note, just because what are they going to do? Is the Inner Circle going to end?
I don't think so. I mean, yes, but not next week. They will. That's going to happen, but I don't know when, and I don't think it's going to be next week. I feel like it's going to be a little longer than that. But I guess it's possible.
That would feel so quick too, and that would be so interesting about it, because it's not quick. They've given it time to build to that. Honestly, if you couldn't complain too bad if they did it, but it would just still feel relatively quick because we haven't gotten the rest of that story yet. So I'm not anticipating it, but I could still see someone like Sammy being like, I'm not with you guys. You guys can stay great, but I'm not with you. And I wonder if Jericho would still disband the group, or if they would just attack Sammy at that point.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because Sammy is the definite babyface to come out of this, like, aside from Jericho.
Ooh, I don't know.
Presumably would be
most likely, but what if they all turn on Jericho? Like, and what if it's like a big turn for Sammy? Sammy's been either screwing him the whole way, or somewhere along the way Sammy and MJF come together and realize that they're better off without Jericho as a unit. I'm not expecting that to be the story, but I do think they could tell that story.
They could.
Where it would be surprising.
I agree with that. It would be surprising. It would be interesting. I would like it, but I don't think they're going that way. I really think because I think the potential with Sammy as a babyface is just there, and they see it.
It's been
So
evident since before his debut, but by
Yeah.
having him go heel first, it was absolutely the right move. You know what I mean? He's a perfect kind of babyface, but I don't think he's the babyface people attach to right away, or a lot of people do. But once you go bad and then come back to the good side, a lot more people will attach to that, I feel like.
yeah, definitely.
So I'm very excited for this storyline, no matter where it goes. But I do leave myself open to just the potential of Sammy not being the good guy coming out of it. I think he should be and he could be, but you never know. You just
You're right.
never know. So. But a cool way to set it up, and with Jericho being pissed off, like it all just makes sense. So that's all I ask for is stuff that makes sense from AEW, and that's what we got there. Alex Marvez asked the Young Bucks about their thoughts for their match with TH2, and they go over about the fact that they're fighting champions, but then mention essentially everything we said last week, that TH2 is not getting this match necessarily because they deserve it, but because the Young Bucks, well, because they've gotten themselves in this position. Then we get the Acclaimed who show up. They start doing a freestyle. I loved this, but it also felt very much like something WWE is doing. So that's where I can understand the issue. I think the name of that group in WWE is Street Profits. I honestly don't know, but I know that they exist. So in terms
You are
of,
thinking of the Street Profits, yeah.
so in terms of people relating the two groups and the world star aspect to it, I get it, but I still loved it. Like it can happen on both companies, I think. So
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. It's just, you know,
what'd you think of the
like-
promo, AJ? What'd you think, man?
sorry. I thought it was good. My issue was that like it feels like they're throwing a lot of new teams at us very quickly, which isn't a bad thing. I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad people are getting like having good enough responses on Dark that they can bring them up. But we had Top Flight. We're gonna have the Acclaim now. We're gonna have the Varsity Blondes, and like and then we're gonna get into the Impact thing, and that's gonna be a whole thing. And so it's like, what are you gonna do with all these guys?
I agree, but at the same time, they have such a deep tag team division that I'm with it, man. And I didn't know much about the Acclaimed before. I had known about this team because Tony Khan had talked about them.
That's why I knew them.
I
yeah.
feel like they're not even a natural team in the sense that they've been teaming before, but I could be off there. But I think they just got paired together within AEW. So if that's the case too, they look like a natural fit. Like they already have
Yeah.
chemistry. That's a home run right there. And just like I'm more intrigued by them after this promo. I have not seen anything from them prior to this, but they've already got me interested in what they're doing because it's very similar to, like I said, the Street Profits, but even goes back to like John Cena, his gimmick back in like 2005 with the rapping and stuff. So that stuff works, and if it works, I'm not mad at them for doing it again because it just makes sense. So I was excited to see this team get this opportunity to shine on the mic.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of potential with them, and I think they could be something really incredible down the line. Just based on what I've heard and based on the impression they've left on me, and I have seen a little bit of them, so I don't want to lie, but I honestly think just from what I'm hearing about not the Street Profits, you got me all mixed
See,
up, bro.
look what I did.
The Acclaimed. God, I don't like the name. Okay, I'll say that. I'll go out on a limb. I'll nitpick and be our former.
We
co-host.
haven't been negative for a while, man. It's fair. It's fair.
I
to
don't
have
like
the
their fucking.
negativity.
Tony Khan was like, I had this name since I was a kid. I was like, that's why it's bad.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll give it time to grow on me, but I can understand your gripe with the name. It's not the best name, but this sets up TH2 to attack the Young Bucks before Daniels and Kaz make the save. So we're obviously going to get some type of four-way match down the line between all four of these guys, which again is perfect for the Acclaim to slowly be built up into maybe a feud with the Young Bucks. I'm not totally sure, especially as we get into the Impact situation, but
Yeah.
this is cool. I'm very behind this team, and I'm just excited to see a new team. Like you said that you had a bit of an issue with it. I like it. I like that we're getting a refreshing, especially going into a new year, because it feels like it just makes sense. Like, oh, new year, new teams, new roster. Like everything feels fresh going into the new year. I'm very excited with AEW. So last night was a solid segment of that.
Yeah, I just think the roster is getting a little big, is all.
That's fair, and that's been something people have talked to Tony about in interviews a couple of times, and he himself has said, I know that we've got a deep roster. We have a lot of guys. I probably should have let people go, but we're in the middle of a pandemic now,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to make sure these guys are getting paychecks at the very least, and that's commendable for Tony, and there will come a day probably where some of the guys that we like that aren't being featured will probably be let go, and it's going to be a bummer of a day, but we'll see what happens for them. That won't be the end of the world.
Joey's
AEW,
not being let go.
I'm not saying Joey. I'm saying anybody. Like
Okay.
there's just on the roster, anyone could be let go because
They
there
would
are
not
plenty
do that to
of
Joey,
there are
though.
plenty of people who aren't just being utilized. So at some point they have to be let go, and maybe they can flourish elsewhere. But that's down the road, man. I think that right now they've done such a good job at floating people in and out. They have another show coming. He mentioned potentially having Dark be split into 2 shows where it's half for rookies and half for established talent. I don't love the idea of that, but I don't hate it either. I know that with a deep roster, you want to utilize everyone, and it's worked for them. So. And they're going to smoke TNA or Impact because they just have so many more wrestlers to wrestle for them. So
That's true.
after this, we get Layla Hirsch taking on Britt Baker. Before the match, Britt Baker says that Thunder Rosa doesn't belong here, and she's going to beat Layla Hirsch. This was a solid little match. I was much more excited by the post-match myself because I'm a huge Thunder Rosa fan. But it was a good way to set it up by having Britt take on Layla, who is a NWA superstar. And then this brings out Thunder Rosa. So a good match, though. Britt has looked better and better over the last couple of weeks, so I'm excited for Britt to be in this feud with Thunder Rosa because it just makes sense. And it's like we've talked about the Impact AEW relationship. What about the fact that we have this relationship here with Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa? Like, I like that too.
Yeah. This was it was an okay match. I really, like you said, I didn't really care as much about the match as I did the ending. I saw a lot of people. Well, I guess I shouldn't say a lot of people. Well, I did see some people, and I heard the Premier Wrestling journalist saying that it was too much having Thunder Rosa come out because, and I understand the point that every match on this card had interference or a run-in or some shenanigans or chicanery, and I get that it was a lot, but I don't think it was too much for a show of the caliber it was. Like, everything was exciting and crazy, and a lot was happening. It's not a trend they should keep doing. But anyways, Thunder Rosa, I think, and Britt Baker, like, what else are you going to do with the Layla Hirsch-Britt Baker match? Like, you announced it for a reason, and it obviously was not to have a Matt Classic with Layla Hirsch and Britt Baker because, frankly, Layla Hirsch isn't that good yet. She's all right, but
she's going to be someone who is going to grow over time.
Yes.
And that's fine because she's still very young, and that being young and sort of standing out because of her size is going to benefit her in the grand scheme of things. She is someone I see with AEW for a long time, or with a major player in wrestling for a long time, because she's young, talented, and just different. She stands out even within the women's division as someone who's smaller but can still go.
She absolutely does, and I know that's why I wasn't trying to poo-poo her or say like this was bad because of her. I'm just saying, Britt Baker, Layla Hirsch, we know who is greener, and that's all I was trying to say. And there were moments in the match where that was apparent, but Layla Hirsch is phenomenal. She's going to be fantastic in AEW down the line. But anyways, so I
you can
disagree
just tell
with
with
the fact
AEW.
that it was too much.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, you could just tell with AEW that they've got an idea to start focusing on some of these younger talent. I think they recognized that it worked with Top Flight a couple weeks ago, and it probably worked before that, and they knew it would work with Top Flight. But they've recognized that it's working, utilizing some of these more youthful talent in these positions where they don't even have to be the top star, but getting an opportunity. I think a lot of people can relate to that, just being around that age, 18 to 24, and you see someone that is the same age as you, want to see them at least get a chance. So AEW's done a great job with that.
Absolutely. And anyways, the big point I was trying to make is that I fucking love Thunder Rosa coming out and beating down Britt Baker. Well, she didn't beat her down. The referees held them apart, and the agents had to come out, and they tried to hold them apart, and everything was going crazy. I'm excited for this match. I think these two can tear it down.
Layla dropped Reba at one point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool. It probably sets up for a nice little tag team match between these two or these four women. So, and I would like to see that. I would like to see. That's a great way to get a slow build, man. Like, and it makes sense because they could easily have just tossed the match together next week with Rosa and Layla taking on Britt and Reba, right? Like, you could do that without Reba and Layla's interaction. But when you get that interaction, when they build that into what the product is, it just helps the match. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like a randomly tossed together situation. So I appreciate it. I love that the women's division have a couple different. Well, at least this story has been consistently good, and they have some other stuff going on. So.
Oh, yeah.
They're definitely focusing on the women much more now, and it helps that they can branch out by utilizing women from another company.
Oh, definitely. When you have people like Jordan Grace and Taya Valkyrie coming in, it's going to
man,
definitely...
I didn't even think about how the women's division is going to look. Yeah, you are absolutely right, man. That is an amazing point. I was thinking about NWA and how it's benefited to utilize Thunder Rosa and just those females. And Layla even, but this is a great point, adding to the depth with Impact as well. So I did not even think about that one. That's a great point. The next match we had a hype video for the Darby Allin and Cody Rhodes versus Team Taz match, and then we got the match itself. Solid little match. What did you think, AJ?
I liked it. I thought everything was on point. I loved Powerhouse Hobbs' attire. Ricky Starks takes the pin with the coffin drop. I think that's fine. I wanted Team Taz to win, and I feel like they could have, given what happened immediately after. But
I get not, though. I get why you don't. I mean, you definitely don't want to beat Darby right now.
I totally understand, because they might be doing something with Darby and Sting, maybe. He looked at him for a real long time.
But I would have loved to have seen instead, like them obviously win, Team Taz win by cheating and beating Cody, because I don't want to see Darby lose right now. And I get that they protect Cody very, very well, and that's why we got what we got. But I think that Starks just didn't need to take the pin here. He's someone who is in a dangerous position by continuing to be the guy who loses for Team Taz, because he's just so much better than that. But he's so great on the mic, and post-match they obviously got their revenge on them, attacking Darby. We have Arn Anderson getting involved, and that's when I knew something was fishy. I saw Tony Khan's tweet, I seen Arn Anderson come out, and I was like, this is feeling way too WCW right now. Then we have Dustin Rhodes come out to make the save, but then Cage attacks Dustin. And we have all of this brawling going on, and freaking Sting comes out. We showed it at the beginning of the podcast, but man, this was a moment, and it's a moment that's going to go down when AEW lasts in 5-10 years from now, and they're talking about the 10 greatest moments in AEW history. This is going to be one. Hearing it, Tony Schiavone call out Sting is going to be one. And the commentary did such a great job. I think AEW did a genius job at booking this, in terms of you draw people in with Sting. Like on social media, everybody's saying Sting is in. Oh, we got to go check it out. Oh, man, we still have the main event too. Like, it was booked so perfectly that I'm so happy with what we have going on with that. And I'm not sure where Sting fits in. I would probably be one of the more negative people in terms of, I don't necessarily want to see Sting wrestle a whole lot, but I'm curious in terms of what storyline purpose they go with it.
I feel like he could be a manager. I feel like that would be perfectly fine. If you put him with somebody like Darby,
he could be Darby's manager, yeah.
Because that's what I got from the segment, is that he looked at Cody, he looked at Arn, he looked at Dustin, then he looked at Darby, and he looked at him for way longer. And
if this was WCW, Darby would literally be his son. Like, he would be like, son,
little son.
I'm with you as you break that down to me. Like, yeah, he came out, looked at all these guys in the eye, but was like, I'm not really interested in you guys. This is the little me, kind of. And I like that, and I'm with you. I think that he will make a great manager, or even just mentor type for Darby. And I think the story you could even tell there is that Darby doesn't want it at first, and that makes a ton of sense, or he didn't need it to begin with. So with Sting being involved, man, it's just wow.
If you remember, there were literal points where Darby was just in the stands, lurking alone, just like Sting.
And that's probably the build to it, you know what I mean? They had to have had an idea for a little bit, and we've heard this teased on social media for a little bit too, because we've joked with Joseph about it. And here we are, where Sting is really a part of the company. Selling merchandise real quick. Again, I'm not expecting a match or many matches, I guess, but I'm curious to see where they go. I think we will obviously get one match or maybe two, but I don't know. Do you think we'll get any? You think we'll get none? I guess I should say
No.
that would be more
I
surprising.
don't think we'll get any, and I think that's the right thing.
I think it's the right thing, but I think it also, as just a fan of professional wrestling, I've never really seen that before. So that's where my thought process changes a little bit, and
That's
it
totally
was
fair.
more
I
common
just
in like WCW days where you did actually have legends come about and not wrestle, and obviously they did come about and wrestle too. But I just haven't seen a whole lot of it where he just would come back and be a manager or some type of face for the company. I think that if he does wrestle, though, they've checked to make sure that it'll be a decent match. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, are you physically good type of situation.
Because that's the thing. I don't think he can. I think after I forget what the injury was, but it was bad. And not only that, on top of that, he is 62 years old.
Bro, I know he's old, but this is professional wrestling where they wrestle
I get it.
until
I
they're
totally
70,
get where you're
bro.
coming from.
And
But the injury on top of it.
no, yeah, but I had also heard, and that's where this Sting thing becomes such a situation because Sting is such an anomaly that you hear so much. But I had heard that he wanted to do one more with Taker. Well, obviously, and that would have been ugly. That would have been very ugly. But if he feels he's got it to do that, then physically he probably could do one more if he wants to. And not have to do much. You know what I mean? A tag with Darby where he tags in, hits a Scorpion Death Drop, a Stinger Splash, tags Darby in, Darby hits the Coffin Drop, and that's it. A full-blown singles feud, no. But a couple of tag matches I wouldn't be too surprised about. But I wasn't big on his run in WWE, so I wasn't as familiar with the injury. But as you bring that back up, that does make me a little more hesitant to say that I expect him to wrestle. But again, it's wrestling, and I haven't seen much of that, so... It's cool as hell, though. I'm so excited.
Oh God,
about
this
Sting.
is dope, dude. It's fucking awesome. They couldn't have put on a better show, for how big they were trying to hype it up. To try to live up to all the hype that Winter is Coming was. I was like,
and it ended up being Sting. Sting is Winter. Sting is Winter. That is beautiful. I love it.
It snowed in Jacksonville.
Yep. So it was a lot of fun. It was probably one of the best segments that I've watched in AEW on Dynamite for sure in terms of just excitement. It was up there with the feeling I had when Mox came back. Yeah.
I've rewatched it several times.
Yeah, because it's Sting, man, and you're like, oh man, and it was just such a cool, fun feeling. So I'm very glad with what AEW has done here in terms of getting Sting involved in the company, and the fact that it is AEW. I'm confident in saying I don't think it will be as negative as we've seen other legendary runs in other companies. It's not going to be Ric Flair and Impact, and I think that is a big reason why we won't see that too. Is Sting saw that. Sting was watching that when Flair was there and a part of it, so he probably doesn't want to be that.
The other reason I think, and I know this is silly, but the other reason I don't think he's going to wrestle is because if he was going to wrestle, they would have had him clear out Team Taz with the bat and knock everybody out and get him out of the ring
maybe,
NWO
but
style.
I think it added even more that they were so shook that he was there that they didn't even stay to get beat up. They were so shook that they were gone. And I like that. I really appreciated that from them, that he didn't have to beat them. And it made them kind of look better in the long run. Didn't make them look as stupid, so. Solid segment. It's not a whole lot more you could say besides it's Sting. So, great stuff there. Very excited. And I'm excited for next week because he will be back. He's going to speak and explain a little bit about why he's there. And I imagine it'll probably have a lot to do with Darby, so. That's cool. Also for next week, we have Lance Archer and the Lucha Bros taking on Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston and Butcher and the Blade. We got FTR taking on the Varsity Blondes, Abaddon in action. Inner Circle had the Ultimatum, Dustin Rhodes versus 10, the Young Bucks defending their titles versus TH2.
No, not defending the titles.
Oh, it's not for the titles? Okay.
If they win the match, they get a title shot.
Oh, that makes so much more sense. See, because in the promo, I thought they said that they were lucky to be getting a title shot, but that makes more sense. Okay. And then MJF taking on Orange Cassidy for the Dynamite Diamond ring. That was rough to get through. That's what happens when I try to read from the top up. But
I retweeted a tweet today that said Dynamite was so crazy that that it overshadowed this card for next week, and nobody like really thought of anything about it. But this was actually a really impressive card when you break it down. Young Bucks versus TH2 already. You have a great wrestling match. A new tag team is going to debut against FTR, so another great wrestling match. You have Abaddon, who's in a feud with a program with Hikaru Shida, so that's going to lead to something. You have Sting speaking out. You have the Inner Circle Ultimatum. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yes.
But the Inner Circle Ultimatum is happening. There's a lot happening on this card that will make people want to tune in.
I did not realize that, and because I missed when they ran down the card on the show. I didn't realize the Varsity Blondes is Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. That is a very interesting tag team. I don't know that it's going to be a home run. But it's a cool. It's a great thing to try. Very cool thing to try. These guys are two singles guys who have not really had much of a tag team run, so to pair them together, they look like they will go together very well. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited about that. They're both young. They're both kind of green, so there's a lot of growth that'll have to happen, but a match with FTR is a great way to start that, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
So,
definitely.
That's an exciting tag team. I'm excited.
And then on top
I love
of all
Pillman,
that,
man, so...
Yeah. Oh, no, I love Pillman Jr. I think he has all the potential in the world to be something really impressive. I hope... is he signed with AEW? Because he should be.
He's signed with MLW right now.
So big.
Yeah, see, you're always contradicting yourself. No, he is not signed with AEW right now. He's signed with MLW, but they have a bit of a situation going on that was kind of going on publicly, where he was like, "Well, you guys aren't really running any shows." So, but I think that he's still. It's similar to the MJF situation. He's running MLW and AEW at the same time. After they ran down the card for next week, we got Alex Marvez interviewing Hikaru Shida. She says that she's not afraid of Abaddon. She's just doing cosplay. And then something hits the ground and Hikaru's shook. So, yeah.
I didn't like this.
No, but, I mean, Abaddon versus Hikaru's cool, but this was goofy.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was going on last week about how I like scary characters, like people who just want to look scary, like Abdul the Butcher or some shit. I think I took that from somebody else. Anyways, point is, I don't want the babyface champion who's been beaten everybody to be like, whoa,
over a noise, like just something
like come on, dude. And I didn't like the way she was super scared last week, but I thought it makes sense in the moment because she's all beat up and everything.
Well, it makes more sense when she's like face to face with this intimidating character, but when it's like just anything. I mean, it is what it is. But...
It's like, okay, I get it. But, and that was partially the reason, and this is totally off topic, but I just want to touch on it a little bit. Why I didn't like The Fiend, it's because it's like, oh, he's so scary. And it's like, the only time it was interesting was when somebody was like, I don't care that it's scary, I'm going to fight him anyways. Other than that, it was just like people getting choked out by a monster, and they're like, oh, he's a spooky monster. I guess he was supposed to be in that canon an actual monster, so I don't fucking know. I know I said it was off topic, but I just, it's stupid.
I just hope that we see more of Abaddon if they're going to do stuff like this. Like, she needs to have been more, if they had built this up more, where she had already intimidated a couple of characters in the back or something, it would have more impact.
Or if she does crazy shit or something, but she really doesn't. She just likes title belts. It's not that scary.
She's pretty scary, bro. I'm not.
I mean, she's pretty scary, but, she just looks scary. She hasn't,
mad at it, so.
I am.
After this, we get a Jon Moxley promo just hyping up the match one more time, and then we get Don Callis joining commentary. So what do you think of the promo, and obviously Don joining commentary? Did you think anything of that at first? Did you feel any foreshadowing?
No, none at all. I thought it was just like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting commentary move. That was my biggest thought on that. The Jon Moxley promo, I thought it was really good. He gave a little reference to Pat Patterson. That was nice. And Banana was the one. I don't really understand it, but I'm aware that it's a Pat Patterson reference. And Don Callis during the commentary, I just expected him to be on commentary, dude. I was like, well, he called his matches in New Japan, so it makes sense on the biggest Dynamite.
They've done this before. I know they've had Don here to do at least one set of commentary in the last couple months. I think it was actually the pay-per-view. So
it was on the pay-per-view, yeah.
So it just felt like something they had already done, so didn't feel any type of craziness. But that's the cool part about it is there's the storyline aspect of when he got in Kenny's ear at the pay-per-view. Now here we are a couple weeks later, and Kenny was already going crazy up to that point, so he finds an old friend, Don Callis, at the pay-per-view, and finally comes to a situation where, boom, he wins his tournament match, and then he's in a title shot, and so it all makes sense that is so great. But no, I did not feel any foreshadowing when I saw Don was on commentary, and yeah, so... And the Moxley promo was just, he's so good that it's hard to really say much more than how good the promos are every week until there's one that really, like, goes where we know he can go. But this was solid, man, and a good setup to the match itself. The match they gave plenty of time to. I noted it on social media last night that I was very thankful they were not in any position they've been in before where they're short on time at the end of the show and we're like, oh, man, are they going to be able to... Nope, and even though they had said they had time to overrun, I knew that they wouldn't really need to, most likely, based upon the matchup. So, what a match! It was good. It was really, really good. It's not like it was like a 6-star match, but it was a solid Dynamite main event match, right?
It was. That would be my opinion as well. I don't think it was.
And that's not to degrade it either. Like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm disappointed in the match. I'm not. It was a solid match. They had me where I was wondering what was going to happen. In terms of the finishing sequence where he hits Mox with like 4 knees to the face before getting him up for the finish, I was like, oh my God, like how many times are you going to do it?
Was going to be the first dude to kick out of it. Even then, I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was good. And then post-match with Kenny leaving with Don Callis, I was like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, it was so great, like that I couldn't be mad at it. And then Kenny cheating to win, obviously, like
breaking the gentleman's agreement or whatever.
Which, of course, like what a heel, right? What a heel.
Yeah.
To have set that up last week and say don't do any of this when we fight Moxley, but then utilizing that himself, it was so well done. You can't do anything but commend it. And that's why you don't have to necessarily have a 6-star match right here when the story is so much better than the match would have been. Like,
and there's so much to fucking speculate on, dude. We could talk about this for like this could be a very long podcast if we wanted to make everybody bored silly.
Just speculating on where they could go with Impact, and
where they could go with it, what
yeah.
they've already done, like Mox, who attacked Mox because Don Callis obviously hired somebody at this point. So it's like, is it Sami Callihan?
The Good Brothers, bro. It's the
Good Brothers.
It's the club. They could, in theory,
it's not Sami Callihan, by the way. People who are thinking it's Sami Callihan, because Sami Callihan tweeted that he has unfinished business with Mox now after what happened.
Yeah. So and that's what's cool too is if Impact if New Japan ends up being brought into this relationship as well, you can genuinely see the club reunite in full on a grand scale on a United States television show. Like, holy shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just in general, that idea. And if the Impact relationship doesn't come, I'm okay with that. Or not Impact, New Japan. Because I think that this sort of sets the tone to show New Japan, hey, we can do really great relationships with everyone. We've already had one with NWA, but here's one with Impact, someone we know you guys have worked with. Let us show you how good we can do with them, too. So, and if nothing else, Don is another person who can facilitate a relationship with New Japan. So,
yeah, and not just that. You're right, totally about Don Callis and New Japan. How is Don Callis gonna play into this? Like, is it gonna be like he's just gonna be his manager? Because Kenny doesn't really need a mouthpiece, but it's gonna be interesting to see him with a mouthpiece.
Oh, and what a better mouthpiece could he have?
Oh yeah, exactly. Like it's not bad at all. It's like Dave Meltzer compared it to Bockwinkel and Heenan. And I think that's a really good example.
It is, because it's a great situation here. I'm not even like someone who was ever clamoring for Don Callis to be a manager or anything like that, but the fact that it just makes sense and feels so natural, and at the same time, I was never thinking they should do this. It's like beautiful. Like as a fan of professional wrestling, and really a fan of Kenny Omega, like they're gonna be hard pressed to make me hate the guy. That's what I
Oh,
will
yeah.
tell you. Because even through this, I'm like, well, how cool.
He's such a heel right
Like-
now, and I fucking love it.
Like
So
how
it's-
I don't
it's
know
gonna
how
be
many
tough.
other people could take the championship, run out of the building, and say they're headed to Impact Wrestling, and I would be like, man, that's so cool. Like, but I'm there
One.
with it. So
Literally no one.
yeah, it's a very exciting situation. I'm glad that AEW has this going on. Like the Sting thing was one thing, and so that's where I was like, well, are they going to end the show with something else or no? And they did, like obviously. So I mean, what is your first expectation, I guess, in terms of it? Like, will Cody be the first one pissed off? He can't even fight for the title, so that's a situation in and of itself, you know?
Dude, I think it's gonna be Hangman.
Well, yeah, that too. Like, oh man,
Like
he's
I don't know
he's gonna be
how
hella
soon it's
pissed.
gonna be Hangman, but it's definitely gonna be fucking Hangman.
You're right
'Cause,
too. Well, and
like,
even
it's
Jericho's gonna
gotta
be
be.
pissed because Jericho like built AEW. Like, I really
Yeah.
hope this kind of becomes a full blown invasion thing, and
I think it will. I think it will.
where it's okay for it to happen too is that Impact gets Kenny to start with, so they automatically like because I understand that struggle people are having where they're like,
Well, I do want to say,
who's the main event
supposedly,
go ahead.
supposedly he will also promo on AEW. He's not just going to be on Impact saying what happened. He's
Oh,
also
yeah,
going to be
yeah.
on AEW.
No, and shit, if they just had him on Impact, that would be a huge mistake and something I
Yeah,
would critique.
for sure.
But I think that it's not a bad situation where it's at in terms of him being the first one to jump. You know, Impact needed a big name,
Mm-hmm.
and he could in theory pull the Bucks. They're his best friends. I mean, it's not impossible to imagine that he pulls the Bucks to side with him on Team Impact or whatever. But
And vice versa, it's totally possible that the Good Brothers and the Bucks fight.
yes. So much. I mean, what a story that is too, because like the Bucks, will they reunite with Hangman in this fight against Impact, or will they go with their
Yeah.
best friend Kenny Omega? It's very interesting in that sense. There's just so much that can be done that it's such a good relationship thanks to the relationship Kenny has with Don Callis and the Good Brothers being there, and even the Machine Guns. Like, there are so many teams in Impact that I want to see AEW potentially work with. That this works out for a lot of guys. It works out for AEW in the sense that they're able to use a lot of really great talent and not necessarily have to be the ones footing the entire bill for their contract.
Mm-hmm.
They might have to pay for the dates that the Good Brothers do for AEW, but they're not paying a whole Good Brothers contract. So it works
Yeah.
out for everyone, gets a lot more attention on Impact. I'm curious to see the, pun intended, I guess, impact it has on the Impact rating on Tuesday. Will they have a lot more numbers either
Definitely.
on Twitch or because they still do Twitch, right? Where they
Yeah,
are on
yeah,
Twitch?
they're gonna have huge numbers on both, I imagine.
That's what's well, and the one you're gonna see immediately, obviously, is the Twitch numbers, where it's gonna
Yeah.
go from. What do you generally see? Because I know you watch Impact.
Dude, it was like 2,000 something last week.
So at least 10, and that's a very low assumption.
I would
bro.
say way more.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna be like fucking chaotic in that Twitch stream.
So and if they've already built it up by at the end of the show saying, "Catch us on Tuesday," and it was sweet with what's his name, Marvez, being the one to do that interview, because he's perfect to be the one so confused of what he's saying. Like,
Oh, yeah.
what happened? He's like, "Tune in on Impact on Tuesday." He's like, "What do you mean Tuesday?" And I was like, "That's hilarious." Like, you dummy, obviously. But
Again.
like, it was so much fun in watching it because I didn't know what was going on. Like, I was like, "What the fuck?" And then Don Callis cutting the promo, I was like, "Oh my god, really?" Like, so well done. What an episode. Like,
You kind of got me thinking though, because of how many people don't have access. Like for like this is what I heard was half the amount of people have access as opposed to TNT.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of people will be tuning into Twitch. At least in America, it's free in America,
Yeah.
so a lot of American fans will be tuning in. They could get highlighted on the front page because of how many viewers they pull in.
they could.
Like that's how much I think people are going to tune into Impact.
I think you are probably right, because it's a lot easier just to type in twitch.tv than to try and find out what channel Axis is on, or if that's the channel they're on right now. So I'm very excited about this. I understand people's skepticism and maybe even some of the pessimistic jokes that you've seen on social media, just joking on the relationship, but building relationships in professional wrestling is something that should have been happening for a long time. It probably would have benefited Impact and Ring of Honor to have done this long ago.
Yep.
So to do it now just seems to make sense, even if it's AEW batting a little bit low. There's enough talent in that company that you're going to be really hard pressed to convince me this was a bad idea for AEW. The Good Brothers, the Machine Guns, Jordan Grace, just like some of the female talent they have, some of the singles talent they have, some of the tag team talent they have. Like, there's enough talent in that company that
Sami Callihan, Eddie Edwards, like you got a lot of people you can pull from. You got Joe Doring now, who I'm torn on, but you got Eric Young. You got a lot of crazy people. I know a lot of people aren't jazzed about Eric Young. That's not the point. You got TJP.
Get that Cody Rhodes versus what's his name? Chris Bay. Chris Bay, man. We're finally gonna get that match. And for regular fans, casual fans, they might not know, but for me and you, like to me at least, that's a cool match. Because of Cody, and so I think they will do that one, and they will do other matches like that down the line as well. So they have a lot of potential to do a lot of fun stuff with this, is what I take away from this at the very least.
And I don't know that it's necessarily batting low. I know NJPW is the ideal, but aside from New Japan and the Japanese companies like Dragon Gate, who else is really running TV even? It's really just Impact in America, Impact, WWE, and AEW. So it's not like, oh, this is really outlandish. It's like, who else?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it's a solid relationship, and I think it's one that will probably continue for a while. Maybe just in storyline for a short time, maybe 6 months even. That's not a short time, but a short time for AEW kind of. So, but then the relationship just of exchanging talent will continue going forward, and that's what's beneficial for everyone. So I love what's going on right now. I think that it's great for AEW to have another space to send their talent to go and wrestle if they're not utilizing them. Like, what if on Tuesday Kenny's out there cutting his promo and Joey Janela is the one who jumps in because he doesn't have anything going on. He has a history with Kenny. He could be
me happy.
He could be the one crazy enough to drive to wherever Impact is and beat up Kenny Omega. And yeah, he'd get beat down.
And so could Moxley, by the way. But.
Oh yeah. But in terms of people that AEW has that just haven't been featured that could jump over there.
Yep.
There's so many that could. Even Jungle Boy, even Marco. Like, there's a lot of guys that I'm excited about this for, just for them to get the opportunity to be on that show on Tuesday nights. And I think that could start relatively soon. And that will be a lot of fun too. I will tune into Impact every Tuesday if they've got Marco and other guys like that. And it's funny, this is up against Dark. Right?
Yeah.
Impact airs at the same time as Dark. So
yeah, it is.
It's an interesting situation there. And
bro, what if they cut over the feed on Dark to Impact? That would be great. No, they wouldn't do that.
You never know. I mean, Dark is just as a YouTube show. You know what I mean? It's
true.
not. It almost wouldn't even be that detrimental. It'd probably be smarter to do for your fans. Honestly, if I'm AEW, I would consider doing that. Now that you mention it, because you have 200,000 people already tuned in on Dark. So if you want to guarantee that those fans who are always watching know what's going on, you just cut over the Twitch feed a little bit. So at least either at the very beginning or the very end. So no matter what's going on, it's got us talking a lot, and it's got me very intrigued in what's going on. And like I said, for Impact, it was probably a no-brainer. They were probably like, absolutely, we would love to do this. We've been waiting since the day AEW was started. And the only thing I am basically wishing is that Impact was able to keep a couple of their talent locked in. The Tessas, the Treys, even though I won't be mad if we end up signing them. So.
Oh, yeah. Dude, if I was a kid right now, I would be so stoked. I would be doing crazy shit with EWR and shit. Like, I would be going wild because an invasion angle.
Real life, yeah, it's actually happening, and unfortunately, we're just not at the age. Like, it's still so much fun, but I'm with you in terms of I know how we were when we were 16. If this was going on then, it would be tons of fun. Still going to be tons of fun. I think that it's an exciting thing to do. I'm glad AEW is doing it. It's not quite Kenta showing up, which I'm still so much more perplexed about.
It's
what the
totally,
fuck his videos
it's our
mean now.
fault.
Well, but
It's
what is,
our fault
is he
for
really
working
just flying?
ourselves.
He's just really flying places.
I
and
think
that's
so.
it?
I think he's working people is what he's doing.
Well, and the last, I mean, we'll talk about this last bit of news. We should have opened with it, but Mox isn't doing Wrestle Kingdom, so
No.
that's interesting to me. That when that was said, I was like bullshit, and Kenta's still gonna show up, but then obviously he didn't. So I believe it now, and that's an interesting statement in and of itself. And I don't blame Tony Khan for that.
No, I
like
don't either,
anyone,
'cause you don't want him going to Japan right now.
anyone who's a fan of
Any
New
distance
Japan,
traveling, I mean.
yeah, anywhere outside of the country it's all. You don't want him to maybe take COVID over there. You don't want him to maybe come back with it. You don't want him to end up stuck over there because of a lockdown. You don't want any of those negative things to happen. So based upon that, I don't blame him. It shows that Mox's contractual priorities, which you would assume anyway, are to AEW. But if anyone had that question to begin with, there you go. I'm glad we got a new champion too. This feels like the end of season 1 of AEW Dynamite.
Yeah.
Like, to be totally
Yeah, it
honest
does.
with you,
Like season 1 started with Moxley debuting, and it ends with him losing the title.
losing the title, Sting debuting, and we're running over to Impact. And season 2 starts on a different channel with a different company and the champion everyone was expecting from day one. It's very cool. It's a very cool storyline that I was not expecting. I'm glad AEW is doing it. It's got me super excited about next week's show, but very pumped just about what they've been doing. So.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's all very like Cody has to be the most like in storyline obviously, but Cody has to be the most annoyed dude. Like, okay, he's got whatever going on with Taz and his son. He then has Sting show up for whatever freaking reason and stare him down. Now part of the company he owns, and Kenny Omega just runs off with the championship belt that he's not even able to win. Like, Cody just can't catch a break. He's so busy. He just wants to watch the Go Big show, and he can't even do that. So. But that was a great episode of Dynamite. Andy Nemedy over at WrestleJoy always says, how is it that every episode of Dynamite is the best episode of Dynamite? And sometimes I'm skeptical on that statement. This is the week where I would double down on that statement. This was one of the best, not probably the best episode of Dynamite. So kudos to them. The only downfall is you have to follow it up now, and I'm excited for it. So we'll follow it up on Tuesday night, which is very exciting. We'll have more to talk about on next episode because we'll be able to talk a little bit about Impact, a little bit about AEW. I never thought I would be doing a podcast about Impact Wrestling, but it seems like
we sure are, though.
We might be on the path. So shout out to Tony Khan for that one. Looks like we're done here. I'm going to wrap things up. AJ, go ahead, let them know where they can find you, and we'll get out of here.
You can follow me. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at AJ You can follow me on Twitter at Big Match AJ.
You can follow me on Twitter at Upstate Andrew. I'm on Instagram at Andrew Kazir. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod, YouTube at youtube.com/AllElitePodcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. Leave us a couple comments. Let us know what you think. You can find us on Twitter at AllElitePodcast and Instagram at AllElitePod. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in.